So let's talk about if you need other people. If you're ever in like an uncomfortable social situation, you can always Google it and you can find other people with the same problem. Mostly on forums, mostly on Reddit. You can get an idea of any problem under the sun, exactly what to do about it, or at least, if not what to do about it, you can see what other people are having going on. You could have a mole on your left butt cheek, and you could go on the left butt cheek mole forum, and you could talk to all those people, and there would be some people who were like, I'm okay with my mole, and there would be some people who are like, this is ruining my life, what do I do? And then people would offer them solutions. Anyways, you can do this even for problems that you don't have personally. So you can look up problems that you feel like are imaginary, problems that you feel like nobody would ever have. That's kind of ridiculous. Like, who even has that problem? You can look it up and you can find somebody with that problem, like, a lot of the time. One thing a lot of people who are on the internet a lot like me like to do is they like to read drama. So there is like a huge well of like gossip and drama on the internet because it's very easy to share it there. It's very easy to spread it. All the good stuff rises to the top. Before bed, it's great reading. Maybe you're on the train, you're not doing anything. You can just hop on. You can see like anything that's bothering people. You can go and read it. And this is pretty awesome, I think. And one thing that sticks out to me is the amount of drama around weddings. And I had no idea that weddings are such an issue because you think it's like such a happy thing, right? You're hanging out with all your friends, you get married, whatever. But they actually seem to drive people completely up the wall. So like, it's not just the people getting married that go crazy. It's their friends, their relatives. And, it makes sense once you read this stuff. Like, there's stress involved, like with money, there's insecurities, maybe people don't get married for the right reasons all the time, there's social expectations involved, that's all things that, people don't always handle well, like in any situation, let alone getting married. So I was thinking about that, and that led me to the idea of how when someone gets married, a lot of the time their social circles will shrink. All of a sudden, like, they have fewer friends, like, it's just them and their spouse and, dog, maybe kids eventually, not so much anymore, right? I've even seen, like, talking to my friends, how this, like, pruning behavior can come even before the wedding. So, like, an engagement could go on, and all of a sudden there's, like, arguments between friends. There's, like, lashing out. There's, like, unreasonable like expectations put on, and it all has the effect of like the social circle shrinking. And if you don't believe me, like I said, you just go online and you can read on Reddit about this all day long, and you can see exactly what I'm talking about with all this. And you can even read about this problem that people have, not necessarily me, but like the problem of like, hey, my friend got married, doesn't want to hang out with me. It's very common that people will say, oh, like couples like to hang out with other couples because there's more in common. Like as if like that's like an all-encompassing thing. Like all of a sudden if you're in a couple, it's like that's your hobby, which for some people it is, right? But I don't find that a satisfying explanation. I think that's actually mid-wit advice, because I think you should be selecting your friends for like the content of their character. Like maybe if you're like a social climber or a rich person, you can choose your friends based on like your need to compete with them or look better than them, or maybe you want to steal their stuff. I don't know. There's lots of reasons to be friends with somebody, but ideally, like, you're not gaining friends and losing friends if they're like in a relationship. Like your buddy like all of a sudden is with somebody and now you hang out with them, and then he breaks up with the girl and now you're like not hanging out with him because you're not a couple. See, that doesn't make sense. I think it's actually more simple. I think nowadays the expectation is that your romantic partner is like your best friend in life, and that's good as well. I don't think it's bad, but I think this puts a lot of pressure on the marriage to fill all of the aspects of like a very close friendship, and like all of that social battery is supposed to get plugged into the relationship for some reason, which I think eventually can end up being toxic. If you can get like a lot of your like friend, like positive things you get from friends, like you can get them from like other people, and I don't think that's wrong at all. Like you can have friends that you hang out with and go bowling. Maybe your husband or wife doesn't like to go bowling, so you guys go bowling, you get that bowling energy out, and then you have more energy for the non-bowling spouse. You know what I mean? And I think people kind of lose sight of that. Like they might not even realize that. So then when there's this expectation that your partner is their best friend, you want to do everything together. So you have to go bowling together, even if one of you doesn't like to go bowling. Maybe you played candlepin as a kid and you sucked and you really can't throw the ball. It always goes in the gutter. I mean, it's tough, right? Other thing people don't realize is that you can be happy in like any kind of arrangement. So if you have the right mindset, the right amount of sunlight, and like you sleep enough, like you can be happy. Like, so people can be happy single and like having friends, but people can also be happy single with very few friends. It's less common, but two people, that is like, that's very attractive of a concept. So you can do all the things like a single hermit, like your ideal single hermit does, but you have another person to do it with. So you get this like well of like love and responsibility with them, and you guys can even bang, and it's like you can just fall into that and you can just withdraw from everyone else. And for a lot of people that's good enough. And, maybe that's good as well, right? But I think the problem with that is like I just said, like you can get used to anything. Like you can get used to being in a relationship. You can get used to the way your life works in that, and you can be happy doing that. And then all of a sudden, like other people kind of go out the window, because you didn't like take care of that, like from point A to point B. You kind of just let your life change, and then you just didn't keep track, right? So what's the problem with this, right? So what goes wrong in such an arrangement where it's like it's two stars orbiting each other, right? Not everyone in a relationship actually ends up being happy all the time. So some people are bad partners. Some people are very bad partners to the point of being, abusive. Or some people are good partners, but are also very draining to be around all the time. Relationships also end, and not always for fault, right? So relationships could end for reasons that don't have to do with the relationship. Like someone could move away for a promotion. Someone's family might disapprove. That sounds kind of old-fashioned, but, someone could cheat, and then, like, you break up with that person, even if, like, it would have worked out if, one person didn't make a mistake like that. And, like, if you get to the end of that relationship and you had, like, lost all your friends, like, all of a sudden, that's a mistake, right? Because, like, you don't have the relationship anymore, and you also don't have your friends. And so I think for selfish reasons, you should keep your friendships so you can like turn to them for support, and you can get good advice, and you can also have them if something goes wrong with your relationship that you are primarily relying on for support. So I think that part of the argument is very easy to understand, but I don't think most people really believe or like practice that, so it's not amazing advice. The question that this video is about is, why do we need other people, like in general, like in a broad sense, and how does that apply to like literature writing? So do you need other people? Technically no, not right now. So you lived in an environment in the past where you could be put into contact with strangers very regularly, and it was called the street, like it was called the sidewalk. So people walked places, or they rode on a horse, they rode on the trolley, they rode on the train, And in general, most of them lived very close together. So like even a rural area would have like a town center with like a church and a store, and you would go home to your farm at night, but there'd still be a place where you need to like hang out now and then. And now we have this format where we're on like this acre lot, right? That's your like fortress, and you drive to every place you need to go, and mostly where you go is to work or to pick up Chipotle. It's very like anti that format of living. Like it's very opposed to it. It's a very different format. And I don't think it's that bad. Like I think it's bad, but I'm not here to argue like we should ban this type of living, like we gotta stop it now. I think that's kind of crossing the line to be too much. When you live this life, when you're in that trap, like you should see it and you should think carefully about, do I want to dig myself out of this? Like, is it worth it for me to kind of figure this out and try to like live another way so you can have a full social life in the suburbs? It's just designed for you not to do that, and you have to work towards it. You might have to deal with a lot of people saying, no, I don't want to hang out, and then you kind of just have to work through it. You have to work through being tired, after work and all that sort of stuff. And the tech economy, it works against us in that way. So like it wants us to kind of stay at home because we get like food delivery serfs now, and you tell them like, oh, just leave it at the door, don't contact me, don't acknowledge me, no human interaction, right? You have streaming services which are super awesome and fun. I'm not going to criticize those, but there's like mass surveillance against protesters, and like that gets posted online, and everyone's reaction is like, don't these guys have anything better to do than get out on the street? Well, it's like, they're outside. I mean, that's pretty good already, right? And there's social media to take up our time as well, and I think it's chuggy to criticize social media, so I'm just throwing it in for the views, but it's whatever at this point. Like we're kind of there on social media, and so I don't think anybody's like pulling the puppet strings and they're like trying to make us helpless. I just think we reward systems like this very naturally, and we make a lot of people rich kind of when we just stay home. And it's good to stay home, like it helps us get some stuff done, but you shouldn't do it all the time, right? Even if we don't need other people, we should like try to need other people. So to like describe it very simply, I think it's beneficial to society in general when people have social connections and when they maintain those connections. And I think it's a good idea to like be able to share your mental load with other people and like share your responsibilities, and that's something like I believe in. And so what does this have to do with writing? So the human brain, like I think of it kind of as like a very interesting, a very perfect machine where we consume all this information every day. Like that's basically what your brain is occupied with, other than like keeping your vital functions alive, is it's processing input from everywhere. Like I can feel the eczema on like one of my fingers, right? Like that's what I'm thinking about right now. And also eliminating information that doesn't matter, and that's all very cool and very science and whatever, but the result of that is that your brain takes in all the information through the day and it sorts it out and it absorbs it, and then it spits it out into reactions, right? So like you react by doing other things. And one of the ways in which humans can express themselves is through writing. So like writing in a lot of ways is a way of seeing the world. It's a way of recording your perspective in a moment in time. So like I think a lot of people feel like when they write something that they've imagined, it just comes from absolutely nowhere. But unless you're writing like pure nonsense. Like, you're writing in a language that you learned, right? So that's already one level of perspective. But you're also writing something that other people can understand. So it contains like human characteristics, if not human characters, and then themes that people will respond to, and like emotions and all of that, like impossible to describe stuff. People put that in books for a reason. Like, they're trying to tell a story because that's what the human brain responds to, and they respond to it because it's our reality. So like, when you're creating a different reality in fiction, it is the same thing as just, you go to sleep and you dream, and your brain is kind of replaying what happened, and it's almost, your brain is teaching you all about, the dangers from the previous day, and you're going over things that you feared or things that you liked, and that all happens in your dreams. You're kind of just dreaming on a keyboard or on a pen and paper when you're writing something new, when you're creating something, because it's all shaped by your perspective, and the only thing that can form your perspective is interactions with the world and your environment, and ultimately other people. So I would like to argue that other people are sort of our greatest resource, and I think humans should write books. It's very interesting that we have machines that can write words now, but I would be careful when talking to one of these machines, and like, I would be careful with what it tells you, because I think what people don't realize is that the format and the like subtext of what the machine will give back to you is what you give it. So if you talk to it in a very flowery way, very peppy way, it will respond like that to you. Or if you talk to it like a robot, it'll come back to you like a robot. And then the third, analogy I'll make is that if you talk to it like you're expecting like basically like crazy stuff, it will come back to you and it will affirm all that stuff. So the AI wants to please you, and it will basically like tell you you're smart, you're right, and it will tell you in your own voice, which is, for people who are really gullible, that is very dangerous, because it's like, finally someone who gets me, but it's actually just themselves, right? What happens when you talk to real people and you don't talk to robots is real people are capable of disagreeing with you, or at least reacting in a way that is of their own free will, because they have free will and they don't just have like, prompts or whatever. We should reward that. And so when we're talking about trying to have a social structure to society, and we're trying to talk about needing other people, part of that is respecting how humans can create, and respecting how we are able to create great works of like literature and art ourselves without the need necessarily for other inputs other than the society at large. So I would just like to maybe give you guys my few words of advice, my few words of caution, and also maybe a few words of hope for the future. So be the change you want to see, if that was interesting to you. I wrote a book. Let me go get it. Let me go get the book. This is the book. Can you guys see it? Called Paint Your Eyes as a Train Goes Off the Rails. It's about friendship primarily, and I hope you read it. At the time of this recording, it's coming out in about a week. Been working very hard on it, and there will be more books to come after that. So thank you. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. I'll see you later.